right. Well, good evening. And I want to welcome all of you out and say thank you to some of you. I know that are clients of ours, and many of you have attended different investment nights with us that we've been out in Nashville. My name is Roy Matlock Jr., and I will be doing the talking tonight, as I've been doing for a long, long time. And I just do want to compliment you too for taking the time out to learn, because that's what's going to happen tonight. I'm going to do everything I can to get you educated with I've always believed that education is the key to everything. And if you can learn and be more competent, especially in things that are important to you, it'll always end up working out better. So if you're new to Zoom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a screen. What we'll do is toward the end, we'll have a chance for you. If you have questions, if you'll write them down, we'll show you how to do that. You can actually raise your hand and we can let you ask questions. There's also a chat box in here that if you have a question along the way, you can put it in there. And along the way, if I have a little break here, I'll maybe answer it as we go through the section. So with that being said, we're going to get rolling here. And tonight, is all about a secure and comfortable retirement. That's what this is all about tonight. We are in a unique time in this world. We've got stock markets that are at all-time highs. And at the same time, we've got 43% of the small businesses are either late or behind on their rent. So we've got the market booming, but you got small business struggling. We've got the housing market is still peaking out, yet interest rates have made it the most unaffordable housing market since 2006 at the peak. We've had a lot of things going on. We've got elections, and we've got more people age 65 right now retiring than there's more people on earth at age 65 right now than ever before in history. The stock markets are not reacting the way I think they react to some of the things that are going on with inflation. So tonight is going to be about, let's lock it down and get into the deep about the things that are really what I call retirement killers. And so we're going to get into that. I've got an outline I'm going to run through, but it's about protecting and securing a comfortable retirement. It starts, this is our outline. We're going to have some questions that need to be answered when you're entering retirement to start. I'm going to go through some financial basics. I hope for those of you that jump on here, you say, hold on a second, this is just simple. But when we pull the simple together, you'll understand why I went through that. Then we're going to hit some of the retirement risk, some of the deal killers, and also some of the irritations that could happen to you at retirement. We'll do some Q&A and close it out. I'll be done for sure by 8 o'clock. So I've got right at an hour of content, including our questions. So hopefully we'll be out of here right around 8 and get, unless the questions go deeper. So anyway, so let's get started. So what are some of the questions? So let's start out a budget. What's it going to cost in order for you to retire? The stats say 80% is a good number. Some people say, you know what, it's about the same when we retire. So what you have to look at when you look at your budget, you say, well, the number, what's my financial independence number? We call it a FIN. The budget is the starting point. And typically speaking, if you want to kind of calculate where you need to be, you take your income, multiply it by 16, and that's your number. Okay. And that is a not including Social Security. That's your number. So if you wanted to have $100,000 a year and you didn't depend on Social Security or pension or anything like that, multiply it times 16. And that's going to give you kind of a rule of thumb. So you would need 1.6 million. And when doing this, you start looking, so, well, what do I need to do to figure it out? Well, one thing you could do, you could take your savings and divide it by 16. And that's going to give you a budget. And then you can add your Social Security back in, and that'll kind of give you an idea there. So first thing you do is you start looking at, what's the budget? What's it going to take? And that will also give you some answers to whether you should continue working a little bit longer. There's so much benefit to working if you're capable of working and you have the opportunity. So budget is number one. So think of 16 times. The next one is, where's my income coming from? What are my sources of income that I've got? And so I would make a list. I would go through all my sources. You know, I may have a pension, I may have Social Security, I maybe have some rental properties. Maybe I have, X amount of dollars in my retirement account that I can divide by 16 and kind of get an idea, where things are going. So I want to list my income sources. And then in a little while tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and say, no, where should you come pull out your money first in order to be able to get the maximum long-term gain and the least amount of taxes. So you list your income, you take your budget, you say, well, I'm going to take my savings divided by 16, or I'm going to take my desired income times 16, and that will tell me where I'm at. You could also say, well, I'm going to count Social Security, so I'm going to take my income minus my goal minus my Social Security. That's what I got left. Multiply times 16. That's my number. All right. So that's a starting point. What if you don't have 16 times? Well, it doesn't mean you can't retire, but you're going to have to make some different decisions on the way you go about doing it. All right. Then we get our income sources. Then we say, what about Social Security? When should I draw Social Security? And there's all these, different things going on with Social Security. I actually saw now they've got a company that will actually take your medical records, go as far as predicting your life expectancy, and they can tell you exactly, and based on medical history, not that they can pick your date of death, but how long it would take you to break even by waiting. And my experience has been, if you're not working, draw your Social Security. If you are working, draw it at your full Social Security age. What that means is that in my case, I'm 63, I'm at about 67, even working, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Social Security. On average, it takes about 120 months to recoup waiting from 63 to 67 or 67 to 70. It never pays off. I've run the math. So what I do with a lot of our clients is I tell them, say, draw your Social Security and keep working. What we'll do is on the 15th of the month, we'll hit a draft on your account. We'll invest the Social Security. 3 to 4 years later, you've saved $100,000 as a result of drawing your Social Security, and then you can start living on it. So that's one way you can save your Social Security. 59 and a half considerations. Well, when can I start retiring? 73 is another number you need to know. That's when 59 is when I can actually do something with my money called in-service distributions. That means that I can look at my 401k through my work, continue to work, but take and move my 401k to better options if need be. I have a lot of clients right now that they are, at that age, they've got a good chunk of money set aside, and the options within their 401k are not that broad. And as a result, they do what's called an in-service distribution. That means they can continue to work, continue to contribute, but they can take that lump sum and do something else with it, put it across anything that's out there. Age 73 is another consideration. That's when you're forced to take money. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. What about Roth conversion? Should we do that? And when does it make sense to do that? We'll discuss that a little bit more. And that allows you to take some of your low income years, which in the early years, we can easily make that happen by the way we withdraw money, and then maybe convert some of our retirement plans to Roth, to where one day, by the time we get to 73, we may have a lot of tax-free, if not all tax-free income going forward. So these are things that we look at. Should I downsize my house? I have many clients of mine that right now they're saying that, I don't need this big house, and what could I do? I have one example where I had a client that had an $800,000 house that was paid for, and we were able to take, they're buying right now a $400,000 house, and they're married. They're not going to have any taxes as a result of doing this, but that 400 grand that's left over is going to generate a lot of monthly income. Plus, it's going to reduce the outgo because of the cost of the house and the taxes and upkeep and things like that. So it was a retirement plan just by taking that and making that move. To give you some examples, 70% of the retirement of the net worth of retirees right now is inside of their home equity. And as a result of that, they a lot of times have to do things to get that home equity out. The other question is, I have people all the time, should you pay your house off when you got a 3% loan? You would not think that people actually ask that, but yes, they ask it all the time. And I tell them, no, don't do it. Right now, you can take the money that you would pay your house off with, and you know what you can do? You can put it in a money market and get more than your 2.7% on there. So don't do that. It's your home with a low interest rate is like gold. Never, never, never pay that house off. It makes no sense. In the early days when rates were, I was on the radio back in the 90s with Dave Ramsey, many of you know, and it was a whole different game back then. We had 13% loans and stuff like that. But now some of you have some of these low interest loans. Don't pay your house off. Makes no sense. Should I consider reverse mortgage? We're going to do a seminar series just on reverse mortgages. Before you jump in there and say, I don't know if I want to do that, reverse mortgages have a place. They're called a HECM. What is a HECM? It's a home equity conversion mortgage. What it is it's a way for you to stay in your house and get some of your equity out of your house tax-free, and you can do something with it to turn it into income and still have no house payment. Or it may be that you could use a reverse mortgage to pay off some debt. So that would raise your income. So there's some reasons for that. I have recommended these things in many cases to people. And so we'll be doing something where if you want to log in, you'll get an email, you'll find out about that. And then the last one is withdrawal options. We've got all these income sources. What is the best way to withdraw money? I'm going to get into that toward the end tonight and give you some ideas on how to not pay taxes on your Social Security and reduce your Medicare premiums as a result of that. And so if you're logging in right now, we're going to cover a lot of things tonight. I'll do it in a major quick way, but I'm going to get into detail. And if you have additional questions, you were sent this email, an invitation from one of our financial advisors. They can answer the rest of the questions. So, don't hesitate to reach out, but we're going to try to do all we can tonight. All right. So let's get into some financial basics. So these are things we're going to use and be thinking about when we're setting up our plan. All right. When you first get started, if you're on here right now and you're young and you're getting started, here's what you do. You do a 401k through your work. You put it in the most aggressive funds that you can put it in. You buy a life insurance policy, a term policy. If you're married, you get your term, and you have kids, you get a will set up and a trust, that kind of thing. And those are easy to do now. And so you do things like that and you just knock it out and, put in some money in a Roth IRA. That'll give you some tax-free income. I'll recommend in many cases to take the deduction on your 401k and take the tax savings and stick it in a Roth. Then you got a little of both and you're off to the races. It's not that hard. If the market goes down, you're saying, hallelujah, I'm buying more. All right, because I'm doing that every month. The most important thing that when you get started young is you get on something automated. You automate withdrawals into investments. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. We're going to talk about the complicated side of now that we've done it and we don't have an income anymore. How do we keep our money coming in on a regular basis? So let's start right now with the first thing, and it's called a managed account. I don't know why I'm missing the side slide. So what is a professional money manager? Okay, a managed account could be a mutual fund account. It could be a series of ETFs and different things like that. But a managed account is an account that's owned by an investor but managed by somebody else. I was first introduced to what's called a mutual fund. I got my securities license to be able to offer mutual funds in 1985. Back then, I would say something to a person, say, have you ever heard of a mutual fund? And they're like, no, I don't know what a mutual fund is. And basically I would go in and explain that what a mutual fund does, it's a way where you can mutually, all of us, fund it and turn it over to an investment firm. And that investment account is managed by somebody else. All right. And so when it's managed by somebody else, like a financial advisor, money managers do not receive commissions. Rather, they're paid based on a percentage of the assets under management. So what they do is they charge a fee. And that management fee is very low now. It keeps getting lower and lower and lower. And they get paid a percentage of the value of the account. So their goal is to grow the account because you'll leave it there. And number two, by growing the account, doing good for you, you'll put more money in. Managed funds can allow an investor to build a portfolio around a different style while also receiving the benefits of diversification and professional money management. So I had my first chance to find out what professional money managers do. And I was invited out to a fund group in California called the American Funds. The American Funds is one of the largest ones out there. They started in the 1930s. They've had accounts. Their original fund that started has averaged 12% since 1934. That means they've been able to double your money every 6 years over and over and over and over again for almost 100 years. And so I went there, and the first thing that happened was I was checked in my hotel room, and I looked out, turned on the TV, and I saw a white Bronco driving to the courthouse to turn himself in. That was OJ. And so I started thinking, I'm like, I just checked in this hotel and I'm across the street from the courthouse. And so a few minutes later, I'm looking at him driving down the interstate, and I looked at him pull right into the courthouse. So that was my first trip out to American Funds. Got to see OJ pull in, and I went into that meeting, and I got an understanding of how money management works. And so they had a guy in there that was a pharmaceutical rep, not a rep, but an analyst. And what his job was to check out the drug companies and before they put money into it. And so here was his background. Background number one, he was a medical doctor. Background number two was he had an MBA from a big school. And his job was to study pharmaceutical companies. And they put him on the stage, and he told how he did it. He said, the first thing we do is we meet with every company, and we go meet with the CEO and the president and all of the C-level people at each company before we put any money into it. Once we do that, we go talk to the rank and file employees, and we find out what they're up to, what their attitude is about the company, what they're thinking. And then we go to R&D, see what they got cooking, to find out what's the new drugs coming down the pike and things like that. He said, then we leave there and we go to the doctors' conventions, and we talk to the doctors and see what they're prescribing. We then leave there and we go meet with patients till we find out what the patients, how they're responding. He said, then we rank them A, B, C, D, and E based on what it's trading for, the stock is trading for versus what we think it's worth. We shoot it up to DC to find out what's happening politically with pharmaceutical. And then we'll invest upwards of maybe 2% in any one of our companies. No more than about 2% will go in to any one company. That's how they invest money. And I knew then that I can never outperform those guys. And so that's what they do. I saw another one as a retail analyst, and he said, we put counters at the malls at Christmas because we don't trust the malls. That's a professional money manager. So there's a lot that goes into it. All right. So now let's go to the next one, diversification. Diversification is the practice of spreading your investments around so your exposure to any type of asset is limited. It's designed to reduce the volatility of your portfolio. One of the keys to successful investing is to learn how to balance your comfort level with risk against your time horizon. How do you do that? There's 4 types of things that people generally will put their money in, what I call passive investments. A passive investment is a money market or a bond fund or a stock fund or maybe an annuity. What is a money market? It's generally designed for safety. It's also designed for firepower. Right now, money markets, today I was looking, they're paying about 5%. They're fully liquid, but it's also firepower. It gives you an opportunity when markets go down to have a certain percentage of your money in things that are guaranteed. I say some money market funds are not specifically guaranteed. They've never gone down though. And what happens is those money market funds are sitting there, and you can use them for emergencies, but you can also use them to buy in on the down. What is a bond fund? Think of a bond as a loan. A stock is an own. If we go into a bond fund, it would be a fund manager, like that pharmaceutical analyst. You have a fund manager that gets their information from the analyst, and that manager will buy specific bonds of companies that you've heard of. So maybe Exxon wants to borrow money and they they issue a bond, and you would buy, rather than putting it in a bank account, you could put it in a bond and get maybe a larger return on it. And the only thing that backs it up is that bond of the company. You got stock funds. Think of stocks as owning companies. And I always remember this. I go to the bank and I'll make a deposit in the bank, and I've told the story many, many times. Become an owner, not a loaner. But when you go to the bank, you loan your money, and the bank borrows it from you, and then they loan it back to people. They borrow it for, at the maximum, about 5% on a CD right now. Most of the time, they're paying you nothing on a savings account, nothing on a checking, and they'll loan it back out to somebody that on a credit card at 18%. I wish I could have a business that I could get people to borrow money, loan me money for nothing, and then loan it back to maybe the same person at 18%. Well, I can do that if I own stock in that bank. But again, I don't know which bank to buy. So I go to a stock fund. And if it's a good investment and a good bank, then that's what they're going to do. The next one is an annuity. An annuity is an insurance product. It's people buy insurance for the same reasons all the time. They buy just in case. What that means is just in case something happens, we buy homeowners insurance, and just in case our house burns down. And what happens is insurance companies provide some security to your investments. We'll be getting involved in that. What is asset allocation? It means dividing your investments among different classes. So the ones we're going to talk about are stocks, bonds, money markets or cash, and annuities. The asset allocation decision is a personal one. The allocation that works best for you changes at different times in your life. For instance, when you're young, taking a big risk is different than when you're older. And so what we do is we say, hey, I'm slowing it down a little bit, okay? Because I'm at there. I've won. I don't want to lose. So I'm going to go about doing that. The next one is creating your asset allocation model. So when we meet with people, we have a model. What is that model? Well, it's your time horizon. When are you going to need it? Your risk tolerance, what you can deal with, diversification across different choices. We pick inside of the different choices of stocks, bonds, and things like that. We pick out choices. We go in, and then on a regular basis, we rebalance to keep you in those same type of diversification models. How do we do that? We meet with you and we manage that. That's what a financial advisor does. The next one is we're going to get into is some retirement risk and solutions. So up to this point, I've given you the basics. All right. We talked about stock, bond, money market. We talked about the different questions we got to ask ourselves. And now we're going to get into the three main risks that I call deal killers, big time deal breakers, and we're going to get into also three of the things that are irritation. So let's get into that. So what is the first thing that could really send you off into a bad spot? And that's market risk. You've got your money right now in things that could take the big lick. All right. And what do I mean by that? Markets drop in a big way, and they do it on a consistent basis. But for most people, when you're working, that's an opportunity because you're buying your 401k. So the market risk is a deal killer. Longevity, that means you live too long and you outlive your money. It's wonderful to live a long time, but you don't want to run out of money 10 or 15 years prior. Healthcare right now is out of control. A long-term care stay could wipe you out. So the first three are the ones we're going to focus on tonight. The last three are what I call irritation. Inflation. You can't go out to eat as much. If you still have some money, you just can't eat out as much. Taxation. We want to cut it. It's irritating. But you know what? If we're still making money, that's the only reason we're paying taxes. And then final expenses and probate. That's your kids fighting over your money and paying for your funeral. That's an irritation for them, but it's not for you. But the first three is something we need to get involved in. So, all right. So let's get going here. Let's talk about market risk. I'll give you some numbers to let you look at. Right now, the S&P 500, this was June 17th. I found this article. It says 4 stocks made up 80% of the gains. Can it last? Okay. Think about that. The S&P 500, 4 stocks made up 80% of the gains. So what is that saying? Well, if you were lucky and you had all your money in NVIDIA, which most people have never heard of NVIDIA, that's the AI stock, and that is the largest company on the planet. Think about that. All right. Largest company on the planet, and people have never heard of it. 80% of the gains for stocks, the S&P 500. That's a scary way. That's not diversification. So if you have a S&P 500 fund right now, you got all your money in a few stocks, because the way an S&P works is they put the money based on the market cap and they automatically do it. So in up markets, you do great, but buddy, when it turns, it's the wrong way. So if you have a lot of your money sitting in the S&P, I would be concerned about it. And so we're going to talk about what happens when the markets go down. So when the markets go down, they always come back up. But when they come back up, it's a whole different thing. So these are the going back to 1952, the types of declines for the S&P 500. So it goes down 5% or more about 3 times a year. And if you didn't look at your statement, it lasts about 43 days, and you probably didn't even pay attention to it, didn't even know it. 10% is about once a year. Takes about 110 days to recover. Last time we had that was September 2020. 15% is about every 3 years. It takes 251 days on average to get your money back. And 20%, it'll happen once every 6 years. It takes about a year in order for it to come back. And so if you look at that, you say, so what? I don't care if the market's down for 43 days or 370 days. I'm fine. That's okay. But these are the averages of what goes on. So let's take a look at some of the actual markets. So 2 of the markets that happen is that we're going to look at shows you what happens with timing. Timing is everything. All right. So in the most extreme drop, it took 8 years for the S&P prices to recover after the dot-com bubble in 2000, which was immediately followed by the crash of 2008. So you're sitting here and say, all right, first off, I'm one of those, leave it in there, leave it in the S&P. It's all going to work out. And over a long period of time, it does. During that period of time, people made all of their money that were working. And the reason is that it crashed until the tech happened. You got all your money back eventually, and you're buying at a low discount. And then it got up again, and it did it again. You got to buy again, and it continued to go up. But that was because you were buying. If you were selling, it was a disaster, because you're having to sell at a discounted market. You retired in 2000 and you had to sell at a discounted market. And then about time it started to recover, you had to sell again because you're having to live off your income. So if you're fully invested, it was a bad time for retirement. 2008 followed. It took 6 years for prices to recover to the previous all-time highs. It's called sequence of return risk, is the risk of negative market conditions occurring late in your working years and or early in your retirement years. So what we do is we have to back off when we're getting ready to start pulling money. In retirement, market downturns can have a much more significant impact on your portfolio and your lifetime income strategy. It's important to know where your portfolio is exposed that could put your long-term security at risk if markets move in the wrong direction. My clients, I've been backing them off and that are at or near retirement, because if they are financially independent, the number one goal is to keep that. And so here's what you got to remember. Retirements last a long time. I read an article that said if you're healthy by 2030, you may never die. All right. And because of biotech and all the things that go on. So you got to have a big enough nest egg to meet income needs over an extended period of time. So let's keep going. All right. I jumped through that. All right. Sequence of return is the negative market returns at the end of your working years. At this stage, market downturns have a much more significant impact on your lifetime income strain. Sequence risk is the danger of the timing of withdrawals from a retirement account will damage the overall return. Account withdrawals during a bear market are more costly than the same withdrawals in a bull market. Let me give an example. If the market's going up, to get your income, you sell less shares to get your income. If the market's going down, you have to sell more shares in order to get your income. And so it's much more. So a diversified portfolio can protect you against sequence risk. So you ask yourself, across the board, what's my money look like? Is it over here in the aggressive side? I've seen clients that have company stock and they've got 25% of their company stock, of their money in company stock, and they think, oh no, it can never go down. All right. And then it goes down. I can tell you story after story like that. So you got stocks, you got bonds, you got real estate, you got things over there that are individual. You've got funds, you've got all the way on the farther side, you've got the very conservative. So what happens is the mix is the key. So that's the first piece of the puzzle. Number two, longevity risk. What is that? Well, it can last a long time. This is a picture of my mother. This was August of 2023, August 10th. My mother turned 100 years old. And up on the right side is my sisters and my brother, but down in the middle, the very middle at the bottom, is 5 generations. My niece's daughter just had a baby last year in 2023. My mother was born in 1923. And to kind of perspective that, she retired and has been receiving a railroad pension since she was 60 years old. Is that crazy? So 40 years, and she is getting ready to turn 101 August the 10th. So living longer. Medicine, more people are living longer. By 65, U.S. males in average health have a 40% chance of living to age 85, and females have a 53% chance of living to age 85. If a couple is married, there's a 72% chance that at least one of them will live to age 85. Look down at the bottom right. If you're a man, you got a 6% chance of living to your 95. If you're a female, you got 12%. And if you're a couple, you got an 18% chance that one of you will make it to age 95. So you got to make your income last longer. So let's talk about that. How do we make our income last longer? Annuities provide a solution to longevity risk. Annuities are an insurance policy. They provide lifetime income, guaranteed lifetime income, and tax-deferred growth. So let's talk about, why do we buy insurance? We buy insurance for a reason. We buy it just in case. And I'll give you an example. If you have an old car, you might not carry collision insurance. And you say, well, if the insurance, if I wreck my car and total it, I can afford it. So I'm not going to carry insurance. But people, when they pay their house off, they never seem to do that. They always, when you buy your house to begin with, you have to have it. If you have a mortgage on your house, it requires that you have a insurance policy, homeowner's insurance. But when you pay your house off, you don't have to do that, but people still buy that insurance, even though if you think back over your lifetime, very seldom do you know more than one person personally that even had something happen like that. And so annuities are the just what if, and that's why we buy it. What if I live a long, long, long time and my income runs out? The insurance companies know how long you're going to live on average if they put thousands of people in, but you just don't know. And so we're going to talk about longevity risk and what an annuity and how they work. So there's all types of annuities. We'll do a little deep dive into annuities. So here's some of the things that annuities do. They provide principal guarantees of some sort, tax-deferred growth, and lifetime income guarantee. So this is what annuities do. Think about this. Principal guarantee, tax deferral. So if you put it in and you don't use it, it just keeps deferring, and you can turn it into a lifetime income guarantee. Now, annuities in the past had a bad name to them, because an annuity in the past, once you gave the insurance company money, if you were to die and there was money left and you hadn't gone through that money, you didn't get anything back. Your kids lost it, and so on. Those are no longer the case. So what it amounts to is this: if you put your money in these annuities and you take an income, if you outlive the money, you continue to get the income. If you don't outlive the money, what's left over will go to your family or whoever your beneficiary is. There's several types of annuities. The first one is a fixed annuity. Think of a fixed annuity as a bank account, very similar to a CD when it comes to interest rates, and it has tax deferral, and they can also have long-term care riders. which we'll get into a little bit later. The next one is called a fixed indexed annuity. So what is a fixed indexed annuity? Works like this. It's tied to the stock market. So let's say that you have a fixed indexed annuity and it's tied to the S&P 500. They guarantee your principal if the market goes down. So if you put in 100 grand and the stock market's down 20%, you got zero. So you didn't lose money. So you got guaranteed principal, and it participates in market indexes with caps. So some of the accounts now will get 9, 10, or 11% of the upside. So this is how it works. Market's down 20%, you put in 100 grand, you still have your 100 grand. Market's up 20%. If you have a 9% cap, you'll get 9%, but you won't get 20%. If it's up 5%, you'll get 5%, but it'll cap. Some are at 9, some are at 10. Some I've even seen as high as 11% cap. So upside 11%, downside 0, but you lose the 25% return. But we're not, I tell people right now, we don't worry about losing the 25 if we're getting 11. We worry about losing the 25 and not and losing it. So what it amounts to, principal guarantee. A RILA is a little bit more aggressive. It will have some principal protection. For instance, RILAs typically have up to 20% principal guarantee over a 6-year period. They grow tax deferred, and you get all of the upside of the stock market. So you got some downside, all right, when it comes to the market. So at the end of 6 years, if you put in 100 grand and it's worth 80, they're going to put the 20 back in and make you whole. If it loses more than 20, you would lose money. It's never happened. If you put the money in and the market does great, you're going to get the upside, and it's tax deferred. And so you've got that. And then you have a variable annuity, has no principal protection, but it has the highest upside growth, and it also provides lifetime income guarantee. So we've got all these different annuities that we choose from. So I'm going to show you an example, though, of what annuities can do for your retirement when you start looking at it. Today, insurance companies are very competitive. We go in and we do an income analyzer. This is a 65-year-old single, or this is a 65-year-old married. So the age 65, you're both 65, and you have $500,000. What could you get? You can get about 7.5% for the rest of both of your lives. Now, if you think about it, you could live 18% chance you're going to be pulling money until age 95, and you get $35,700 a year for the rest of both of your lives. So if you think about that, it's about 7% for the rest of your life, even if the account goes to 0. Now, if the account does well and there's money left over, you get it. If something happens to you in a short, to both of you, whatever's left over would go to your family. That's a 65-year-old. And if you go down this chart, it's hard to see. You can see at age 70, I see one at age 70, you can get 55,000 at age 70 for the rest of both of your lives. If you go in and you want to do, and you're single, you get a little bit more. Single lifetime income, age 65 is 39,000. If you go to age 70, it's almost 60,000 that you can get. And think about at age 70, 60,000 a year, that's 12% on your money for the rest of your life, even if the account goes to 0. So what we tell people is annuities make sense for a portion of your money. All right. So now we've got market risk that we have to deal with. We still should have money in the market because inflation is there. Stocks and bonds tend to do better and they tend to keep up with inflation. But at the same time, we don't want to take a big hit doing all that. So let's go to the next one, which is healthcare risk. Healthcare risk. Now in their 80s and 60s. I got this today from Barron's. Respectively, the Loudonville, New York couple is looking at even higher costs as their insured Genworth seeks a rate increase of up to 143% on their long-term care insurance. So long-term care insurance, just like health insurance, is skyrocketing. And so there's better ways. So what do you go about doing it? Well, here's what you got to understand. Most people think, oh, long-term care, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. Here's what happens. 55% of the residents are 85 years or older. And you say, yeah, that makes sense. But 38% are between 65 and 84. Let me give you some stats. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, 70% of adults aged 65 years and older will require long-term care at some point the average stay in long-term care is 3.2 years. Just over 20% of the population will do it for 5 years. What does it cost? It's about $9,500 a month currently in Tennessee. Personal care, these are the things that cause you to get it. Any two of what's called activities of daily living you can't do, you can get some type of long-term care. And so what are some choices you can make to get away from long-term care insurance and deal with all that kind of stuff? Well, there's two ways you can do it. One of them is a fixed annuity. It's partially self-insured with a deductible. I'm going to show you that. And there's also one of those RILAs, which is a variable annuity that has an income multiplier. I'm going to show you the fixed annuity, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the variable annuity because we have to show a prospectus in order to be able to do that. The RILA is an investment product that has insurance tied to it. The fixed annuity is strictly an insurance product. So how does it work? So let's look at a long-term care solution with a $100,000 deductible. So the way this works is let's say that you put in 100,000, and the reason you did that, so well, 100,000 at 3.2 years is about 300,000 is the average stay. So I'm going to put this into a fixed annuity. It's getting 4.5%, and so it's growing. The way it works is this: in the event you have two of those LDLs, you'll be able to get a long-term care benefit. The way it works is this: the insurance company, the first 100,000 that you put in, or whatever the account value is the deductible, and they will double what you put in to a total, or put another 200 in to your 100. Or another way you look at it is, if you put 100 in, you got a $300,000 benefit. If you don't use it, it's your money. It goes to your kids. You can pull it out if you need it, but it's a long-term care rider. So you put in, think about this, 100 grand in, 300,000 if something happens. The account grows from 100 grand at 4% to 200 grand, you got 600,000 in coverage. If you back it down, you can back it down. This would be what the numbers look like. So at age 66, 100,000 gives you 308,000. By year 5, you've got 115,000, you get 356,000. In year 10, you've got 133,000 in there. Your long-term care value is 399,000. If you haven't used it, you've got 153,000 at year 15. If you pass away, it goes to your family. If you go in the nursing home, it's triple. And at age 90, 200,000, and it would be a $600,000 value. So that's one option of doing it. So it's a tripling effect. It's a deductible account. So if you look at it and say, I'm going to throw 100 grand in, it's going to insure me 300. And every year as the account grows, the long-term care benefit grows. I'm going to give you an idea on the RILA and how it works. The RILA is very similar to a lifetime income guarantee. To give you an example, right now, a RILA at age 70 jointly pays about 8%. The way it works is if you have any two of the ADLs and you own one of those RILAs, your 8% lifetime income guarantee goes to 16% until the money is gone. It will then pay 8% after that. So which one is the most conservative and which one is the most aggressive? The deductible one is the most conservative. If you have more assets and you think, I can probably fund it one way or the other, but then what I'm going to do is put it in one of these RILAs because it has more growth opportunity. So let's hit inflation, risk number 4. This will give you an idea of what you need to be thinking about at 3% over the next 30 years. A $10,000 income needs to be 24,000 over 20 years. It needs to go to 18,000. We're in high inflationary times. This is not the first time inflation has been around. It's not going to be the last time, but it doesn't last forever. But you need to understand, we're not going to get into this tonight. How do you beat inflation risk? You got to have a piece of your money in the stock market. That's what it does there. Taxation, I should look at taxation as, how do I go about getting my money out with the least amount of tax? The order of importance, generally speaking, when you retire, we use outside investments, taxable funds, and we deplete them. We look at life insurance and annuities to get that lifetime income guarantee. We then look at Roth IRAs, which are tax-free. And while we're pulling these early investments where our taxable income is low, we may consider traditional IRAs, converting those. to Roth when our income is down. And then the question is, what about rental real estate? All I can tell you is this: real estate is a business, and the older you get, you may decide you don't want it. And because it's a hassle, my family had 40 something houses. My dad loved it. And then his handyman died and he's 85 with a bunch of them. We don't do that anymore. So if you have rental property, is it a great investment for people that like doing it? Yes, but you might want to think about that. That's just something that you consider when you start pulling out. But the goal is to get the most income and the least taxation. And we can do a whole series just on that. The next one is final expenses in probate. Believe it or not, GoFundMe is the biggest thing on GoFundMe is paying for final expenses. And the reason is dying costs a lot of money and probate is expensive. So let me give you an example. Final expense solutions, you need about 50 grand earmarked for final expenses and something conservative. If you self-insure, we would do something like that, earmarked for that. If not, you can apply for a final expense or some type of guaranteed life insurance policy. A lot of the companies we deal with right now, not only do they do that, they also provide a will and a trust. And then the probate, I just read an article today that if your family ever gets into probate court, it's a fight is what the reason it usually happens. And the family will spend 600 to 900 hours of their life fighting over it. So a will and trust protects that. We recommend attorneys, or we also have other ways that you get it where you can do it on your own. But the bottom line is you need to have a living trust and have your will, which is your healthcare power of attorney, your financial power of attorney. And also it will protect your beneficiaries from divorce and lawsuits and everything like that. And so we can answer questions for that. That's another seminar that we'll be doing just on that. All right. So I'm going to open it up to Q&A and let's see what we got here real quick. If you would like to ask a question, here's what you need to do. You just need to raise your hand and we will make that happen. I'm trying to get it where I can see this real quick. Stop share and see if we got any Q&A. Any questions? I know I've covered a lot. Hopefully this has got you more up to speed on what's happening. Any questions? A hand raise is all you got to do. Anybody? Okay. So I must have just covered it so good, and we're 13 minutes till 8. So any questions? Any last questions? If you've written them down. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish and let you know what we do. And then I would encourage you to reach out. If you've come to one of our seminars, whoever invited you out, you received an email from, just hit them back with email and they can set up a time to talk further. So let's get to the end here and make this thing happen. All right. I've talked a lot. Let me get one more drink here. Okay. So what do? We implement solutions. So I'm going to show you an example of what it might look like and what your money, if you're a client of ours, you're already seeing things like this. First thing we would do is we would meet with you. And I would encourage you to do a follow-up phone call if you want to do a review. All you do is you call us, we put you on the calendar, or you reach back out to us via email. We'll put you on the calendar, meet with one of the advisors. Then we go through your plan. And the plan basically is we find out what your goals are. We go back through what you just saw and we put something in place. From there, ongoing education as a client, we have many clients that are on here right now. We do that. We do different seminars. And we want to keep you educated. So you'll hear from us not only to keep you up to speed, but also we'll give you ongoing advice. And then we go out to a product marketplace. We have access to all of the investment products, all the insurance products. So what we're able to do is go out and shop and place you with the right products that work through your plan based on risk tolerance, diversification, and all the different things that we talked about. Here's what it might look like. All right. Fund would look if someone came to us and they were a typical client of ours, we would have a portion of their money in the stock market. We do that in order to keep up with inflation. We have a portion of their money in a money market account. Why? Money markets are a chance for you to have cover your emergencies, but also a chance if we have a declining market that you can do a buy-in. Typically, when we're pulling money, we're going to push the stock market accounts out for later because of inflation. The same holds with bonds. So we may have a stock and bond funds in there and money market accounts. We'll have something that has a lifetime income guarantee ability to turn on. So you may start with it and you put it in, and then 2 years later, you decide to retire. You've got that money that you can convert to an income. And depending on your situation, we might consider a healthcare annuity. That healthcare annuity, if you're completely financially independent, we wouldn't do that. All right. And what that means is that in the event a nursing home happened, you have enough assets to where you're not going to deplete it, then you might not want to do that. You might go toward one of the RILAs, but either way, it's going to look something like that. And this would be a typical asset allocation, about 35% in the stock market, maybe 10% in the money market account, 15% in the bond funds. And then you're going to pick up the rest of it is going to be sitting in the healthcare annuity or the lifetime income guarantee. So that would be an example of what we might do. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to close with this. We appreciate you coming out. If you have questions, I'll open one last time, ask, go ahead and do it. I'm 7:51. So hopefully this was beneficial to you. Any questions, comments, anything at all? I hope this helped, and we would be happy to meet with you and get into more specific detail for you. So anybody? Doesn't look like it. So guys, y'all have a great night. Thanks for attending, and we look forward to meeting with you. See you later. Thank you.